If we want to truly understand the hidden depths of friendship, we must start with the unspoken expectations and boundaries that quietly govern every relationship. Friendships, at their best, are a source of comfort, support, and joy. But beneath the laughter and shared experiences lies a network of implicit agreements, expectations about loyalty, availability, communication, and emotional support that are rarely articulated. These unspoken rules shape the rhythm of the relationship and, when left unexamined, can quietly create tension, disappointment, or even distance between friends. Unspoken expectations often begin innocuously. Perhaps we assume a friend will always be available to talk when we are upset, or that they will remember important milestones in our lives. We may expect reciprocity in favors, time, or attention, yet never explicitly state these needs. Because they are assumed rather than communicated, when expectations are unmet, resentment can build silently. We may feel hurt, frustrated, or undervalued, yet struggle to articulate why, because the underlying expectation was never discussed. Understanding that these silent assumptions exist is the first step toward healthier, more authentic friendships. Boundaries are the other side of this coin. Every friendship has natural limits on time, emotional energy, or personal disclosure. Yet these boundaries are often unspoken, and their ambiguity can create confusion. For instance, one friend might value frequent daily communication, while another needs more space and independence. Neither may articulate these preferences directly, leading to misunderstandings. Boundaries are not barriers to intimacy. Rather, they are essential frameworks that allow friendships to be sustainable. Recognizing and respecting these invisible lines protects both partners from exhaustion, frustration, or subtle emotional strain. The interplay of expectations and boundaries highlights the subtle negotiation that occurs in all friendships. Even when both parties have the best intentions, unspoken assumptions can misalign with reality. Friendships are not static. They evolve as people grow, encounter new life experiences, or shift priorities. What was once acceptable may no longer feel sufficient, and what was once ignored may become a source of tension. This evolution underscores the importance of awareness. The most enduring friendships are those in which individuals are attuned not only to each other's presence, but also to these silent undercurrents. Another critical aspect of unspoken expectations is the way we internalize them. Often, we do not even consciously recognize the standards we are holding our friends to. We may feel disappointed when a friend does not respond to a message immediately, or when they cannot provide the support we unconsciously expected, yet we hesitate to name the expectation. In this silence, our inner narratives grow, coloring the friendship with assumptions, interpretations, and unspoken judgments. The friend we think is neglectful may, in fact, be acting within their own limits or values. Bringing awareness to these internalized expectations allows us to distinguish between realistic needs and projections, reducing unnecessary conflict. Yet recognizing unspoken expectations is only part of the process. The next step is careful communication. Healthy friendships require a willingness to articulate needs and negotiate boundaries even when it feels awkward or vulnerable. Expressing, for example, "I feel most connected when we talk regularly, but I understand you have a busy schedule," or "I need some time to process before I respond, and I hope that's okay," creates clarity and mutual understanding. These small acts of verbalization prevent silent assumptions from growing into resentment and reinforce trust by demonstrating respect for both parties' perspectives. Importantly, addressing unspoken expectations does not mean transforming friendship into a contractual arrangement. It is not about policing behavior or quantifying contributions. It is about awareness, honesty, and reciprocity. Friends who navigate these dynamics thoughtfully maintain the balance between personal autonomy and relational care. They honor their own needs while remaining sensitive to the limits and expectations of the other, fostering a relationship that feels safe, satisfying, and enduring. Ultimately, the silent truths of friendship, the expectations we hold, and the boundaries we navigate are what determine its depth and longevity. Awareness of these dynamics allows us to move beyond assumptions, frustration, or unspoken disappointment. It transforms the friendship from a collection of pleasant interactions into a living, evolving bond grounded in respect, clarity, and intentionality. So, if you want to cultivate friendships that are resilient, meaningful, and authentic, start by observing the unspoken agreements that shape your interactions. Reflect on your expectations, notice the boundaries that exist, and bring awareness to the silent currents that guide your friendship. Because it is only when we confront these hidden truths that we can transform assumptions into understanding, tension into dialogue, and ordinary companionship into enduring connection. Unspoken rules do not have to remain hidden. When illuminated, they become the foundation of deeper, more conscious friendship. Even the closest friendships carry a hidden layer of complexity, the subtle weight of jealousy and comparison. These are emotions we rarely speak aloud in the context of friendship because they feel shameful, inappropriate, or even disloyal, yet they exist in almost every relationship, quietly influencing interactions, shaping perceptions, and sometimes creating silent tension that neither party fully understands. To explore the silent truths every friendship hides, we must confront the reality that envy and comparison are natural human responses, and that acknowledging them, rather than suppressing them, is a pathway to deeper connection and authenticity. Jealousy in friendship is rarely about material possessions or overt achievements. More often, it is about relational dynamics, perceived attention, or emotional closeness. You may notice a subtle pang when your friend spends more time with someone else, succeeds in an area where you struggle, or shares parts of themselves that feel inaccessible. These feelings can emerge without conscious awareness and often carry a sense of guilt. We hesitate to name them because doing so feels like an admission of inadequacy or a threat to the bond we cherish. And yet, these hidden emotions exist precisely because we care deeply about the friendship and the value it holds in our lives. Comparison, closely linked to jealousy, is a silent metric by which we measure our own worth against the perceived successes or attributes of our friends. Social media has amplified this tendency, providing constant reference points for achievement, lifestyle, and social connection. Even in the absence of explicit competition, the human mind instinctively evaluates, am I enough? Do I matter as much? These internal comparisons can create a sense of insecurity or subtle resentment, even when consciously we celebrate our friends' accomplishments. Left unexamined, these feelings can distort our perception of the friendship, creating distance or unspoken tension. The challenge lies not in eliminating jealousy or comparison, they are natural, but in how we acknowledge and navigate these feelings. Suppressing them entirely can create emotional bottlenecks where resentment festers silently. Expressing them indiscriminately, however, risks alienating or hurting a friend. The key is self-reflection, observing the emotions without judgment, understanding their origin, and separating them from the reality of your friend's intentions or worth. By recognizing jealousy as a signal, often pointing to our own unmet needs, insecurities, or desires, we transform it from a relational poison into a mirror of self-awareness. For instance, if you feel envy when a friend receives recognition, it may indicate an unmet desire for acknowledgement or validation in your own life. This awareness allows you to respond constructively, to focus on cultivating your own growth, to celebrate your friend genuinely, and to communicate your needs in a measured, authentic way. Similarly, noticing comparison patterns can illuminate what you value, what you aspire to, or what emotional gaps you feel. In this sense, jealousy and comparison, when examined consciously, become instruments of insight rather than sources of hidden tension. Addressing these silent truths also requires a degree of courage and vulnerability in the friendship itself. Deep bonds are strengthened when friends can create safe spaces for honesty, where subtle insecurities or feelings of inadequacy can be discussed without fear of judgment. This doesn't mean airing every pang of envy in a confrontational way. Rather, it involves cultivating relational openness and empathy. Statements like, I sometimes feel a little insecure about this, and I want to share it with you, or reflective conversations about personal challenges, can humanize the friendship and foster mutual understanding. Vulnerability in this context is not a weakness. It is a bridge to deeper connection. Moreover, navigating jealousy and comparison with awareness nurtures emotional resilience. Friends who confront these feelings consciously learn to celebrate each other's successes while maintaining self-assurance. They understand that another person's achievements do not diminish their own value, and that a healthy friendship allows both individuals to thrive independently and together. This approach transforms potential tension into a relational resource, strengthening the bond rather than weakening it. Jealousy and comparison are often silent because they are uncomfortable, but they carry a profound lesson. Friendship is a mirror. The emotions they evoke reveal both our vulnerabilities and our aspirations. When approached thoughtfully, these hidden feelings encourage growth, self-reflection, and conscious empathy. They challenge us to cultivate gratitude for our friends, clarity about our own needs, and intentionality in how we show up in the relationship. So, if you want to uncover the silent truths every friendship hides, start by examining your own responses of envy and comparison. Reflect on what triggers these feelings, what they reveal about your needs, and how they might subtly influence your behavior. Acknowledge them honestly within yourself and create space for measured, empathetic dialogue where appropriate. Because it is only when we face these hidden currents that we can transform them into opportunities for trust, understanding, and deeper connection. Jealousy and comparison are not enemies. They are quiet teachers, guiding us toward more conscious, authentic, and enduring friendships. Beyond unspoken expectations and the subtle currents of jealousy, there is another silent truth that underpins every enduring friendship: the often invisible labor of emotional care. Friendships are not maintained solely by shared hobbies, conversations, or memories. They are sustained by a quiet, ongoing investment in the emotional life of the other. This is what we call emotional labor, the attentive, empathetic, and sometimes exhausting effort to understand, support, and maintain the relational bond. It is rarely recognized or discussed, yet it is one of the strongest determinants of a friendship's longevity and depth. Emotional labor manifests in many forms, both small and significant. It is the act of remembering a friend's birthday or a difficult anniversary, checking in when life feels overwhelming, or offering space for venting without judgment. It is mediating tensions within shared social circles, providing advice when solicited, or quietly listening when a friend struggles to articulate their feelings. None of these acts demand grand gestures, but they require attention, energy, and intentionality. They are often invisible because they occur behind the scenes. Their power is subtle, cumulative, and relational rather than performative. The distribution of emotional labor is rarely equal, and this imbalance is often the source of tension in friendships. Some friends naturally take on more emotional responsibility, offering support more readily, remembering details, or navigating relational friction with patience. Others may contribute less consciously, not out of malice, but because of differences in temperament, emotional capacity, or life circumstances. Problems arise when the labor becomes invisible in the eyes of the person giving it, when their efforts go unnoticed, unacknowledged, or unreciprocated. This is why awareness and gratitude are critical. Recognizing the invisible contributions of a friend sustains relational equity and prevents silent resentment from accumulating. Understanding emotional labor requires seeing the friendship as a living system. Each individual brings different capacities, limitations, and rhythms to the relationship. One friend may be the emotional anchor, while the other provides practical support, humor, or social connection. Both contributions are vital, yet neither is inherently more valuable. The silent truth is that friendship thrives when both parties are aware of the give and take, when contributions, visible or invisible, are acknowledged, and when there is a willingness to adjust patterns over time to meet each other's evolving needs. Emotional labor also demands boundaries. Because caring for a friend's emotional needs can be taxing, sustaining a friendship requires honesty about capacity and limits. Saying, "I'm here for you, but I need a moment to recharge before we dive in," is not a rejection. It is a form of self-care that protects the relationship from burnout. Friends who practice this balance respect both their own emotional energy and the integrity of the bond. Boundaries, when clearly communicated and mutually respected, transform invisible labor from a source of exhaustion into a sustainable relational practice. Another subtle aspect of emotional labor is attunement, the skill of perceiving what your friend needs even when they cannot articulate it. This requires empathy, patience, and reflective awareness. It is the friend who senses a silent struggle behind a casual comment, who notices tension in tone or posture, and who responds with care before the situation escalates. This kind of attunement builds trust and intimacy because it communicates, often without words, that the friend is deeply seen, understood, and valued. Emotional labor also reinforces relational resilience during conflict or stress. Friendships are inevitably tested by misunderstandings, life transitions, or differing expectations. Partners who have invested in emotional labor are better equipped to navigate these challenges because the history of care, attention, and reciprocity provides a buffer against immediate reactions of hurt or frustration. The relationship becomes less about isolated conflicts and more about a shared trajectory built on the cumulative effect of years of attentive engagement. Importantly, recognizing emotional labor is not about measuring or comparing contributions in a transactional way. It is about awareness, appreciation, and conscious reciprocity. By acknowledging the invisible work that sustains friendship, whether through words of gratitude, acts of consideration, or simply noticing and honoring the effort, we reinforce relational equity and strengthen the emotional bond. This awareness also encourages self-reflection. How can I be more attuned, more present, more responsive to the needs of my friend? Small adjustments accumulate into profound shifts in relational health. Ultimately, the silent truth of emotional labor is that it forms the backbone of enduring friendship. Without it, even the most joyful and harmonious relationships can falter under the weight of neglect, imbalance, or misunderstanding. By attending to the invisible work, recognizing each other's contributions, and maintaining a balance of care, we transform friendship from a series of pleasant interactions into a resilient, emotionally nourishing bond. So, if you want to understand the hidden dynamics of friendship, start by noticing the emotional labor that often goes unseen. Reflect on the ways you give and receive care, express gratitude for the invisible contributions of your friends, and practice attunement, patience, and reciprocity, because it is in these quiet, consistent acts, the listening, the remembering, the subtle gestures of support, that friendship grows from companionship into a deep, sustaining connection that can weather the challenges of time, distance, and change. Emotional labor is not visible, but its effects are profound, shaping the very heart of meaningful, enduring friendship. If there is one silent truth that threads through every deep and lasting friendship, it is the fear of vulnerability and the restraint it imposes. We often hold back our deepest thoughts, struggles, or desires in friendships, worried that sharing too much will burden the other person, invite judgment, or change the way we are perceived. This silence is protective. It shields the relationship from potential harm. Yet, paradoxically, it also limits the depth of connection. The friendships that endure and flourish are rarely those that avoid discomfort. They are the ones in which both parties gradually, carefully, and consistently make space for authentic expression. Fear of vulnerability is deeply human. From early experiences, we learn that showing our inner world can carry risks. We may have encountered rejection, ridicule, or indifference when we were open in the past. And these experiences create a cautiousness that extends into adulthood. Even in a trusted friendship, these patterns linger. We hold back thoughts about anxiety, dissatisfaction, or personal struggle because we fear disrupting the equilibrium, or because we assume our friends' needs must come first. In doing so, we trade authenticity for comfort, and while the friendship remains functional, it often lacks emotional intimacy. Yet vulnerability is the currency of connection. When a friend dares to share a worry, a fear, or a personal failure, and the other responds with empathy rather than judgment, the bond strengthens. Authentic sharing communicates trust. I feel safe enough with you to reveal myself, even in my imperfection. And it signals reciprocal openness. When one person models courage in expression, it often invites the other to do the same. Small, deliberate acts of sharing, not dramatic confessions, but honest reflections on feelings, needs, or struggles, create a rhythm of vulnerability that fosters profound intimacy. Silence, while protective, can also foster distance. When both friends hold back aspects of their internal lives, the relationship operates on a surface level. Conversations may revolve around daily events or casual interests, but the emotional core, the fears, insecurities, and aspirations that define human experience, remains unexplored. Over time, this restraint can generate subtle frustration, a sense of unspoken gaps, or the quiet feeling that something essential is missing. Friendships are, at their best, mutual mirrors. When we see only part of ourselves reflected, the bond is necessarily partial. Creating space for authentic expression requires both courage and careful attention. It is not about overwhelming a friend with every worry or burdening them with unresolved problems. It is about cultivating an environment where honesty is safe and where emotional sharing is met with curiosity, empathy, and presence. Simple practices, asking, "How are you really feeling?" and listening fully, or saying, "I want to share something personal with you. Are you in a good space to hear it?" signal intentionality and care. These small gestures create relational safety, encouraging both parties to engage vulnerably without fear of judgment. Another critical aspect is attunement to timing and receptivity. Vulnerability is most effective when it aligns with the emotional bandwidth of both participants. Sharing struggles when the friend is distracted or overwhelmed may backfire, producing stress rather than connection. Similarly, offering a listening presence without judgment or unsolicited advice communicates that vulnerability is not only allowed but welcomed. Over time, these repeated interactions build a pattern of emotional safety, and the friendship becomes a sanctuary for authenticity. Vulnerability also invites growth, both individually and relationally. By expressing fears, doubts, or personal challenges, friends not only lighten their own emotional load, but also provide opportunities for reflection, insight, and support. They encourage the development of empathy, patience, and active listening, and they deepen the shared understanding of each other's inner lives. A friendship that allows vulnerability is dynamic, evolving, and resilient because it is grounded in honesty and mutual care. Importantly, creating space for vulnerability does not mean eliminating boundaries or emotional self-protection entirely. It is a deliberate balancing act, being open enough to foster connection, but mindful enough to respect both one's own and one's friend's capacity. This awareness, when practiced consistently, strengthens the friendship and ensures that emotional sharing is nourishing rather than depleting. Ultimately, the fear of vulnerability is the silent force that limits the depth of many friendships. Yet when approached consciously, it becomes a gateway to trust, authenticity, and profound relational intimacy. The friends who thrive are those who embrace vulnerability thoughtfully, creating safe spaces for honesty, empathy, and mutual support. They recognize that true connection requires risk, but that the rewards, resilience, understanding, and shared emotional richness are immeasurable. So, if you want to uncover the hidden truths every friendship hides, start by confronting the fear of vulnerability in your own heart. Notice where you hold back, reflect on why, and create small, intentional opportunities for authentic expression. Ask for understanding, offer your own inner world gently, and respond to your friend with empathy and presence. Because it is only when we dare to show our authentic selves that friendships evolve from companionship into profound, enduring connection. Vulnerability is not weakness, it is the bridge to the heart of true friendship.